Alibaba is partnering with Apple to roll out artificial intelligence features for iPhone users in China. The AI integration comes at a critical time for the iPhone, which has faced declining smartphone sales in a key market. Shares in Alibaba surged more than 9%, reaching their highest since January 2022. Marc Ostwald is Chief Economist and Global Strategist at ADM Investor Services. Good to see you again, Marc. Welcome back to the programme. So Apple had a choice here, didn't they? But they've gone for Alibaba over other Chinese AI companies. Why did they choose them?
I think it really boils down to retail footprint, where Apple needed a local partner for AI. And there are other partners. Indeed, we've had an announcement today that Baidu is also working with Apple on that front. But the most important thing is Apple's iPhone sales in China have been declining. The pace of growth is basically fallen quite dramatically in recent years. And with AI basically being at the center of the next stage of developments in terms of mobile telephony, it's key that they find a very strong local partner with a very large retail footprint. And I think that's the primary motivation.
So good news for Apple then. Is it going to save their iPhone sales, though?
I think it will to some extent, but one really has to sort of then look at it in the broader context of what's happening with Chinese consumer spending, and it's clear that consumers don't feel that comfortable as yet. What would obviously help is if wages started to pick up again, and if the property crisis was resolved. We always end up in pretty much the same space with that. And Apple, obviously being at the high end in price terms, in terms of its phones, faces a lot of stiff competition from locally produced phones. So I think it will help, but probably more at the margin than in terms of giving a big boost, as big a boost as perhaps Apple are hoping.
And what about for Alibaba? What does it mean for them and the broader AI market in China?
Well, I think since we had the news broke about DeepSeek, a couple of weeks ago, there is this realization, and it's probably the most important one in terms of all the AI development, that it can be basically done a lot cheaper, a lot less resource and energy intensively. And China being sort of at the forefront of everything to do with renewable technology, it really has a strong chance here to break into the market. And what was thought to be some exceptionalism about the US AI market is probably now being undermined. And it's not before time, because at the end of the day, both in terms of the energy transition and in terms of AI, broader AI implementation, particularly generative AI, the sort of cost base that's being implied at the moment is simply not sustainable. And it's not going to be the sort of mass market product that it will aim to be, and it will eventually become. But in the first instance, everything needs to work towards massively reducing the cost of it.
And you mentioned Baidu just now. Let's talk about them. They've also announced that they're going to make their own AI chatbot free from April. Does that give them an edge? Does that change things in the AI space there?
Certainly, anyone who makes their AI bots, basically effectively open source, is stealing a march on their competitors. It's a question of what everybody else does then. Does that set the benchmark for everybody else? Does everyone else follow that route, or will others basically try and seek other enhancements? The biggest problem with AI is actually there's not really much of a consumer hook, i.e. there's not much, if it's free, then there's no, people will just bounce around between whatever's there. And at the end of the day, if you're trying to enhance your company's offerings, be you a Baidu, a Tencent, an Alibaba, or elsewhere, you need some sort of hook, a subscription type hook to keep people in your space. And that's really where the big competition is going to be, not only in China, but also globally.